it on groups. We focus it on ethnicities, religious groups.
Oh,
and
Christians.
We start to map out in color code the different locations. And we might apply some basic routing and of transportation nodes and routes in that, and that will become a base layer. The second step we start doing is support level characterizations. The support level characterizations, we generally will make a scale, and we'll say +4 to -4. We'll take current ops activity in a particular area. We'll base it in the case of you pick a place and try and neck it down into a +4 being bad, a location, a -4 being a good location, and we start to characterize the location in a color coding simple way, green, yellow, and red, and then we start layering that on top of the tribal aspects, and we start to see very distinct patterns of what tribe X or what group X supports or doesn't support hostile activities in their area, vice areas that are, say, green and clear of problems. This is a very all-source-centric approach.
Read the bottom line.
But
right
often, up until maybe the last 5 or 10 years in the current fight, we have not really done a very good job of making the cultural aspects really relevant in everyday intelligence analysis. The next step you would take is to dive into each of those areas and do a deep dive and start focusing on the key leaders, tribal chiefs, and then specific locations in the example I'm using to start to understand patterns of movement in a multi-int focus to understand what's going on the ground, where are the key locations, doing things like cost surface analysis to understand time, distance, travel within that group, and understand what's normal activity for the particular ethnic group or location of individuals within that region. And so you now know what's normal, and then you can follow the activity with various collection methods and sensors to get to what is not normal and what needs to be adjusted over time.
Adjusted.
What do you think is normal to these people?
Exactly.
Total subservience, total bowing down, whatever you say is what we have to do. You want to put us in a fun camp? All right, we'll go to the fun camp. There's a disaster. We need to the authorities are here to help. They're always here to help. And that's what you've got. And then the color coding system. I mean,
this foundation
ridiculous.
that is working closely with this GON, it was there since the foundation of it. They're talking about when this first was brought up by the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He said there's 3 different areas that they are drawing from in their experience to produce this. The military efforts in Iraq, law enforcement here in America, and Novato casino gaming, where they look at unusual behavior of people at the table, see if they're counting cards or something like that. But the 2, military efforts in Iraq and law enforcement, they're saying, will something happen? How can we predict it and prevent it? So the military as well as law enforcement is going into this pre-crime mode, which means that they're normalizing this stuff and saying, oh, something is out of the normal. Let's zoom in on it and see if we have to take it out. And of course, one of the ways that they will take it out is with psychological operations, psyops, just isolating the individuals or discrediting them or setting them up.
The newest pre-crime technology that's coming out, Miami's about to introduce it. It uses social media along with paychecks. They analyze everything to try to predict where crime is going to occur. And so, if they're doing that on a local level, they've been doing it on a state level and federal level for a long time.
Yeah.
And, DARPA's already said they want to predict the future, and they're using social media to do it. And social media is a great way because everybody puts everything out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's this trade association. They say law enforcement, and they're talking, I mean, this is not just military, this is law enforcement again. Law enforcement must deal with those who would violate the law, and they have to try to prevent them from doing so. Criminals are often indistinguishable from the normal population.
There you go.
So you're not a criminal until, like in the words of the Stalinist regime, bring me the man, I'll find the crime, right?
Yeah.
If they notice that you're doing something that they don't like, they do it. And they talk about how there's now this new trend in law enforcement called intelligence-led policing. And that's all of this pre-crime that we keep seeing over and over again. But it's the massive amount of data, pulling that in with boots on the ground. And that's what they mean by mastering the human domain.
Right. Now, that was from 2010. Joe Biggs actually found this. It was the AUSA, which is the Association of the United States Army panel, discusses the importance of the human domain. This was uploaded on 2013, but I don't think it was shot then. It was on a YouTube channel. I think it had 73 views.
Yes. Is this the one who talks about bringing the military home?
Exactly.
This is Bombshell.
Right.
You need to hear this. Let's play that
clip one. It starts off with a question, and then it goes into the answer. It's a little, once again, this is not high fidelity stuff. It's long-winded generals just babbling on. But
70 people have watched this in a couple of years.
They say a lot of stuff that's really interesting. We have 2 clips. Let's go to the first one.
We hear a lot about lessons learned. I know you have a Center for Lessons Learned. I guess what I'd like to be a part of is helping us do it better in the future. And I think there's no operational environment we're going to go to ever that's going to be simple. They're all going to be complex, hybrid, asymmetrical, whatever you want to call them. They're complicated, and we're going to have other actors in that space. So what are you doing, and what's the practical thing you can do, even starting at the schoolhouse level, to ensure that assessments of the operational environment take into account more than the terrain and enemy and weather? That the assessments take into account the most dynamic operational variable, which is the population, always, not just for stage F, but always, from the beginning.
That's a great question, and I'll tell you, it's the essence of really what we're doing with strategic
now,
manpower.
This is the Bombshell quote coming up here, right?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Of the human domain, and that sophisticated understanding of all those things you said, tribal, history, language, culture, it's so significant. One of the programs we've put into place, and just think about this, most of the U.S. Army is coming home. I mean, for various reasons, we're not forward deployed. It's not going to be easy to study that. This program we have of regionally aligned forces is an intellectual commitment by our Army that says you're a professional soldier, you're likely to fight here, you better start that understanding of the operational environment.
Wow.
Whether you take
15.
no intel at rest, whether your entire base or your intel analytical section is focused on supporting a specific problem set down range, studying that down to individual level fidelity, the opportunity, the preparation of putting leaders on the ground, putting great young leaders on the ground in that environment, growing, experiencing it, being immersed in it. But I think identifying this lesson, the fact that some did it well, some did not do it well, and then building those appropriate mechanisms through regionally aligned forces and the constructs that we're developing in terms of that intellectual commitment to mastering that is absolutely
Okay, so they're coming home.
They're coming home.
And
it's
when you look at the fact
that they understand what the heck is going on
to master this human domain. And when you look at the fact they're staying here for, this is an unusually long training exercise to be 2 months. There's 5 points when they talk about this, what this ABI is and what mastering the human domain analytics. They say they want to collect and characterize local activities. They want to identify local actors and entities conducting activities. They want to identify, locate networks of actors, understand relationships between networks, develop patterns of life. So when they talk about how they want to move amongst us, this is something they need to understand. We're just here to observe, right?
We might have law enforcement pull over our team, which is what the head of Jade Helm said, to see how they react to it. And if you see him and you recognize him, then they're doing something wrong. The next clip, they go to another general. I guess he's a general. He's got a lot of ribbons. He seems to be a general. He carries himself as one. And he talks about how we have to integrate armed forces and NGOs and civilian operations, integrate them during peacetime operations. So let's go to that clip.
We have lots of people who've grown up over the last 10 years who understand working with NGOs, with governmental organizations, with interagency partners. So what are we going to do now? Are we going to continue that? Are we going to continue to develop these relationships? Are we going to continue to understand each other, how to operate together? That's a challenge we have. I'm willing to assign military officers and NCOs to these organizations. Wow. I'm willing to do training with these organizations. The challenge is going to be, is it going to be reciprocal? And that's what we have to work on, because that's why I don't have to relearn this again. As you said, we had some problems. Not everybody got it, but we have a lot of people who did. And we have a lot of young officers and NCOs who did this at a very low level. Yeah. And so it's incumbent on us to make sure that we don't lose this and that we capture this and we continue to do it in a peacetime environment. When we do our exercises now and at the training centers, we are including a civil military piece of it. The issue is how we continue to support that as we move forward, and can we continue to get support? So
there you can see the merging of the military and the police.
That has less than 100 views on YouTube right now.
Wow.
I mean, nobody's looking for this information because it's not super sensational in your face. And, you know, that is one thing we do here. We do sensationalize things that need to be sensationalized. This needs to be sensationalized. Look, 81 views, probably 5 of those are from us today, watching these clips.
That's right.
And getting, and I guess, I don't know who Cameron Long is, but she uploaded this.
It was in the low 70s when we first saw it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the way it's going. The last clip, and this is back to that Human Domain Conference, Master of the Human Domain in 2010, Doug Weinstein, Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence.
Yeah.
So DoD Intelligence is also working on this, you know, human geography component where they want to understand everything. They want to know when they go into an area, are they going to have more friendlies or more hostiles?
Absolutely.
And then they will act accordingly to that.
If you go to these GeoInt conventions, the keynote speaker in 2010, the keynote speaker in 2013, I don't know about 11 and 12, was none other than James Clapper, the guy who lied to Ron Wyden, who held his hand down like this. And of course, Michael Hayden says, shame on Ron Wyden. He knew, as all the other staffers knew, that they were doing dragnet surveillance, and he made him lie on camera. No, shame on him for lying.
Yeah.
But of course, he's the keynote speaker of these, along with other people from Homeland Security. We have people from the NSA. This is something that is fairly large. Again, James Clapper and all of these civilian
integrated
with
together.
the military, just as you heard that fellow say in the last clip.
Right. So let's go to that clip.
As Chris mentioned earlier, I'm a policy analyst in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence Sociocultural Analysis Program. The program was established less than just 2 years ago to provide support for and oversight of defense intelligence, sociocultural analysis, capabilities to apply and integrate the social sciences in addressing defense intelligence requirements. This period of low-intensity conflict, irregular warfare, and counterinsurgency operations has greatly increased the number of requirements related to sociocultural analysis.
Those weren't his
From
slides.
data collection models to data collection itself, to taxonomies, to analytic methods, to processing, exploitation, and dissemination. These requirements reflect the growing needs of our combatant commands, our combat support agencies, the services, our national agencies, our coalition partners, and academia as well. On just Tuesday, Director Clapper emphasized the importance of partnerships and information sharing and information integration within the intelligence community and between our second and third party partners. Enable the combatant command sociocultural analysis cells, which exist at 5 of the 6 geographic commands in addition to SOCOM, so that's AFRICOM, CENTCOM, EUCOM, PACOM, and SOUTHCOM, to mature their analytic capabilities with respect to the requirements of their combatant commander and the Joint Intelligence and Operations Center that they exist within.
There you go. It's everything.
So they're looking at social network. And one of the things that they say in this, they want to know who you are, what you do, and who you know. Those are the 3 questions that they're looking for with all this.
How many friends do you have?
Exactly. So that's why they're scanning all the social networks. That's why they are trying to actually change your mind as well. They don't want to just monitor what you're doing and just map that out and physically map it out as another layer on the map. They also want to be able to change you. This is another quote from this organization here. The importance of understanding the human domain has shifted. They say there's been a shift from a concentration on nation states to smaller organizations down to individuals. Today, an individual with a video camera and a laptop computer can have worldwide impact. That's why they're doing all the stuff that they're doing. And that's why you see this kind of training by the military, by the law enforcement agents, and why they're merging these things together.
Yeah, exactly. And it's definitely a spooky, Brave New World 1984 scenario where they're going to know everything about everybody. And when they decide to launch the operation, a martial law plan, whatever, they're going to have their ducks lined up in a row. And probably by that time using autonomous robots to do most of the dirty work.
Yes.
It won't be soldiers, because they know the soldiers they've woken up and they're not going to do it.
Yes.
I think I see right now, if they did it, 50% wouldn't participate.
You know, just closing this report where these guys break down what GeoInt is, what human domain analytics is. They had this quote again from James Clapper. This is what he says. And think about this when you look at the logo, Mastering Human Domain. That's what they're talking about.